Afia Okafor wiped the sweat from her brow as she balanced the small container of jollof rice in her hands. The Lagos sun beat down mercilessly, but that never stopped her daily ritual. Every afternoon for the past 8 months, she would take her lunch break from the small bakery where she worked to bring food to the blind beggar who sat at the corner of Broad Street. "Chisom," she called out as she approached. "I've brought your favorite today." The old man turned his head toward her voice, his cloudy eyes hidden behind dark glasses. His weathered face broke into a smile that revealed missing teeth. Dressed in tattered clothes that had seen better days, Chisom extended his calloused hands. "Ah, my sweet Afia. The angel of Lagos. Your kindness is worth more than gold," he said, his voice raspy yet warm. Afia sat beside him on the wooden crate that served as his seat during the long days. At 32, she was struggling to keep her late mother's bakery afloat amid rising costs and fierce competition. Yet she always made sure to prepare extra food for Chisom. "How are the streets treating you today?" she asked, watching as he savored each bite of rice. "Same as always. Some give, most ignore. But God provides through angels like you." What Afia didn't notice was the sleek black Mercedes that slowed as it passed them, or the tinted window that lowered just enough for someone to observe their interaction before driving away. Later that evening, as Afia closed the bakery, a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit approached her. His presence commanded attention, and his eyes held the sharp intelligence of someone who missed nothing. "Ms. Okafor?" he inquired, his deep voice startling her. "Yes. Who's asking?" She clutched her keys tightly, suddenly aware of how deserted the street had become. "My name is Zikora Namdi. I represent someone who has been watching you with great interest." A chill ran down Afia's spine. "Watching me? What for?" Zikora handed her a business card so expensive-looking that Afia almost felt afraid to touch it. "Your kindness to a certain blind beggar has not gone unnoticed. My employer would like to meet you tomorrow evening." "Your employer? Who?" "All will be explained. A car will pick you up at 7. He glanced at her modest bakery with an unreadable expression. "I suggest you accept. It could change your life." Before she could ask more questions, he turned and walked to a waiting car. That night, Afia couldn't sleep. She Googled Zikora Namdi and found nothing. The card only contained a phone number, no company name, no title. Her best friend Ngozi warned her not to go when she called for advice. "This sounds like the beginning of a horror movie, Afia. A mysterious rich man watching you. Please." But as Afia stared at the ceiling, thinking about the mounting bills and the bank's final notice of foreclosure on the bakery, she made her decision. She would go. What choice did she have? What she didn't know was that her simple act of kindness had entangled her in a web of secrets that stretched back 20 years, secrets that powerful people would kill to protect. The car that arrived for Afia the next evening wasn't just any car, it was a Rolls-Royce Phantom with buttersoft leather seats and privacy windows that revealed nothing of the outside world once they were closed. The driver, a stoic man named Kwame, offered no conversation beyond a respectful greeting. After 30 minutes of driving through increasingly affluent neighborhoods, they passed through gates that seemed to touch the sky and rolled up a driveway lined with palm trees and flowering hibiscus. The mansion that appeared before them looked like something from a movie, sprawling, pristine white, with fountains that danced in the fading light. "We have arrived, Ms. Okafor," Kwame announced, opening her door. Zikora waited at the entrance, his expression as controlled as it had been the previous day. "Ms. Okafor. Thank you for coming. Follow me, please." The interior of the mansion was even more impressive, marble floors, artwork that Afia suspected cost more than she would earn in 10 lifetimes, and staff who seemed to materialize and disappear like ghosts. "Who lives here?" Afia whispered, feeling completely out of place in her simple dress. "You'll meet him shortly," Zikora replied, leading her to a vast library where floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a lit swimming pool that glowed turquoise in the darkness. "Wait here. Would you like something to drink?" "Just water, thank you," she managed, her throat suddenly dry. Left alone, Afia examined the room. The books looked old and valuable. On the desk sat a framed photograph that caught her attention, a young man with his arm around a woman. Something about the man's smile seemed familiar, but before she could look closer, the door opened. "Ms. Okafor. I apologize for the mystery. The voice made her turn. A distinguished-looking man in his 60s entered, walking with the aid of a cane. His tailored suit couldn't hide his frailty, but his eyes were sharp and assessing. "My name is Dr. Olumide Achebe. Please, sit." As they sat across from each other, Dr. Achebe studied her with unsettling intensity. "You've been feeding a blind beggar on Broad Street for months now. Why?" The question caught her off guard. I don't understand. What does that have to do with anything?" "Everything," he replied. "It has everything to do with why you're here." Dr. Achebe leaned forward. "That man you know as Chisom the Beggar, he's not who you think he is. His real name is Chisom Ezeife. 20 years ago, he was one of the wealthiest men in West Africa." Afia's confusion must have shown on her face because Dr. Achebe continued, "He's worth over $2 billion, Ms. Okafor. And for reasons I cannot disclose without his permission, he has been living as a beggar for the past 5 years. That's not possible," Afia stammered. "I understand your disbelief. But what I'm about to tell you is strictly confidential." He paused, his gaze intense. "Chisom Ezeife is dying. He has 6 months at most. And he's been watching you." A chill ran through Afia's body. "Watching me? But he's blind." Dr. Achebe's smile held no warmth. "Is he?" The implications of that question hung in the air between them. "I represent Mr. Ezeife's medical team and legal interests. He's requested something unusual. He wants to give you $10 million. Afia nearly choked. "What? Why would he?" "Because you were kind without expectation of reward. Because you saw humanity where others saw only something to ignore or pity." Dr. Achebe slid a folder across the table. "But there's a condition." Afia stared at the folder, her heart pounding. "What condition?" "For the next month, you must continue as you have been, feeding him, talking to him, but you cannot reveal that you know who he is. Not a hint. He's testing your character, Ms. Okafor." "Testing me? Why?" "The 10 million is just the beginning. There's much more at stake than you can imagine." The weight of the secret pressed down on Afia like a physical force as she approached Chisom the next day. Could this frail beggar truly be Chisom Ezeife, the billionaire industrialist whose disappearance had been headline news years ago? The men she remembered from business magazines bore little resemblance to the hunched figure before her. "Ah, my Afia comes again," Chisom said, turning his face toward her approaching footsteps with uncanny accuracy. "I can smell your mother's special pepper soup recipe." Afia forced a smile he supposedly couldn't see. "You have a good nose, Chisom." As she sat beside him, she studied him more carefully than ever before. The dark glasses. The convincing cataracts visible above them. The weathered hands that never seemed to fumble when accepting food or money. Had it all been an act? "You're quiet today," he observed, sipping the soup. "Something troubles your spirit." "Just business worries," she replied, which wasn't entirely a lie. The bank had given her final notice yesterday, 2 weeks until they foreclosed on the bakery. "Money problems," he nodded sagely. "They come and go like the tide." Easy for you to say if you're actually a billionaire, she thought, then immediately felt guilty. After their meal, something unexpected happened. A group of young men approached, their intentions clear from their predatory stances. "Well, what do we have here?" the leader sneered, eyeing Afia. "Sharing lunch with garbage." Afia stood protectively. "Leave us alone." "Us?" The men laughed. "You defending this worthless beggar? Empty his cup. Let's see what he's collected today." Before Afia could intervene, one of them kicked over Chisom's donation cup, scattering the few coins. Another grabbed her purse. What happened next occurred so quickly that later, Afia would question if she had imagined it. Chisom's hand shot out with startling precision, gripping the wrist of the man holding her purse with such force that he cried out. In the same fluid motion, Chisom's leg swept under the leader, sending him crashing to the pavement. "The lady asked you to leave," Chisom said, his voice transformed, commanding, cold, nothing like the beggar's humble tones. The young men scrambled away, terrified by this sudden transformation. Chisom immediately resumed his hunched posture, his movements once again those of a frail old man. He acted as if nothing had happened. Sometimes, he said quietly, people see only what they expect to see. Afia's heart pounded. Who are you really? She whispered before she could stop herself. Chisom's expression changed subtly. I'm exactly who I appear to be, child. No more, no less. That evening, Zikora appeared at the bakery again. You almost revealed your knowledge today, he said without preamble. How did you? Were you watching us? Afia demanded. Always, Zikora replied. Mr. Ezeife has many eyes in the city. Those men today, was that stage too? No. But it was, informative. Zikora studied her. There's more you need to know, Ms. Okafor. Dr. Achebe didn't tell you everything. He handed her a newspaper clipping from 15 years ago. The headline read, Industrial Accident Claims 23 Lives, Ezeife Industries Denies Negligence. What does this have to do with me? She asked. Look at the list of victims. Afia scanned the names, freezing when she saw it. Neka Okafor, 42. My mother, she whispered, memories rushing back, her mother's deteriorating health after the chemical exposure, the years of suffering while Ezeife's lawyers stonewalled their claims, the medical bills that had nearly bankrupted them. Yes, Zikora confirmed. Chisom Ezeife is the man responsible for your mother's death. Afia's world tilted on its axis. The beggar she had been feeding, the man she had shown kindness to, was responsible for her mother's suffering and death. The revelation left her gasping for air, leaning against the bakery counter for support. Why, she finally managed. Why would he seek me out? Why this charade? Zikora's expression remained unreadable. That's what you need to discover. And the $10 million? Is that blood money? Conscience money? Afia felt sick. I'm not authorized to answer that, Zikora replied. But I can tell you this, not everything is as it appears. There are forces at work here beyond Chisom Ezeife himself. As if on cue, Zikora's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression changing subtly. I need to go. Be careful who you trust, Ms. Okafor. Including me. After he left, Afia closed the bakery early and did something she'd been afraid to do. She researched everything about Chisom Ezeife and the industrial accident that had claimed her mother's life. What she discovered was disturbing. Ezeife Industries had been manufacturing agricultural chemicals when a containment failure exposed workers, including her mother, who worked in the company canteen, to toxic fumes. While the official investigation cleared the company of criminal negligence, internal documents leaked to journalists suggested warnings about equipment failure had been ignored. Most strange of all, 6 months after the accident, Chisom Ezeife had suddenly sold his companies, liquidated most of his assets, and withdrawn from public life. The official story was that he had moved abroad, but clearly, that wasn't true. The next morning, Afia approached Chisom with her heart pounding. Could she face him knowing what she knew? As she watched him from across the street, she noticed a sleek black car parked nearby. Through the window, she could see Dr. Achebe watching intently. When she sat beside Chisom, she fought to keep her voice steady. I brought fufu and egusi soup today, she said. Ah, you spoil an old man. He smiled, but something seemed different. Was he watching her reactions from behind those dark glasses? How long have you been on these streets, Chisom? She asked casually. Time blurs when you have nowhere to be, he answered philosophically. 5 years, maybe 6. 5 years. Right after he disappeared from public view. Do you have family? She pressed. A shadow passed over his face. Once. I had a son. Kanu, brilliant boy. He would be about your age now. What happened to him? Chisom grew still. He died. In an accident at my factory. He was there visiting me when. His voice trailed off, genuine grief evident in every line of his body. Afia's mind raced. There had been no mention of Ezeife's son dying in the accident. This was new information. Later that afternoon, she received an unexpected visitor at the bakery, an elderly woman named Mama Yawanda who ordered tea and sat watching Afia with keen eyes. You're the one feeding Chisom, she stated, not a question. You know him? Afia asked cautiously. I've watched him for years. The old woman leaned closer. And I watched his son die. Afia nearly dropped the teacup. You were there. At the factory. I worked in cleaning. Saw everything. Mama Yuanda's eyes grew distant. It wasn't an accident. The boy discovered something, documents, proof that his father's partner was cutting corners, using substandard materials. The boy confronted him, and then she made a silencing gesture across her throat. Who was the partner? The old woman's eyes darted nervously around the bakery. A powerful man. Very powerful now. Dr. Olumide Achebe. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place with terrifying clarity. Afia spent a sleepless night piecing together everything she had learned. If Mama Yuanda was telling the truth, then Dr. Achebe, the man who had approached her with the proposition, was responsible for not only her mother's death but also the death of Chisom's son. But why the elaborate charade? Why was Chisom living as a beggar? And why had he sought her out specifically? The next morning, Afia arrived at Chisom's corner earlier than usual, her determination overriding her fear. To her surprise, he wasn't there. Panic seized her. Had something happened to him? Had her questions yesterday aroused suspicion? As she turned to leave, a note was pressed into her hand by a street vendor who immediately disappeared into the crowd. It contained an address and one line: "Come alone. Tell no one." Every instinct told her it was dangerous, but Afia had come too far to turn back now. The address led her to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Heart pounding, she entered the dimly lit space. Afia. Chisom's voice came from the shadows, but it was different now, stronger, more commanding. You came. He stepped forward, and for the first time, she saw him without the dark glasses, without the stooped posture of a beggar. His eyes were clear and sharp, his stance powerful despite his age. No more lies, she said firmly. I know who you are, Chisom Ezeife. I know about the accident that killed my mother. And I know about your son. Chisom nodded slowly. Yes. It's time for truth. He gestured to a table where photographs and documents were spread out. 5 years ago, I discovered that Olumide had been embezzling funds, cutting corners on safety measures. My son Kanu found the proof. When he confronted Olumide, he was killed, made to look like he died in the containment breach along with 22 others. Including my mother, Afia said quietly. Yes. Chisom's eyes filled with sorrow. I didn't know about your connection until recently. I've been living as a beggar, invisible to my former world, gathering evidence against Olumide. His greed killed your mother, my son, and many others. But why involve me now? Because I'm dying, truly dying. And because you're Kanu's half-sister. The revelation hit Afia like a physical blow. What? Your mother and I had a brief relationship years before she came to work in my factory canteen. She never told me about you. I only discovered the truth while investigating the victims of the accident. He handed her a DNA test. You're my daughter, Afia. My last living child. Tears streamed down Afia's face as years of unanswered questions about her father flooded her mind. The $10 million isn't a test or blood money, Chisom continued. It's yours by right. But more importantly, this evidence, he gestured to the documents, will bring Olumide to justice. He's used my fortune to become one of the most powerful men in the country, but his empire is built on murder. Is that why you've been watching me? Testing me with your false blindness and poverty. I needed to know what kind of person you are, whether you could be trusted with this truth, with this responsibility. And you proved yourself every day with your kindness. He took her hands in his. Will you help me finish this? Will you help me bring justice for your mother, for my son, your brother? At that moment, the warehouse doors burst open. Zikora entered, but not alone, he was being marched at gunpoint by Dr. Achebe's security team. Dr. Achebe himself followed, his cane now revealed as a concealed weapon. How touching, Achebe sneered. The family reunion I've been anticipating. You knew. Chisom demanded. Of course I knew. Who do you think led you to her? I've been watching both of you, waiting for you to gather all your evidence in one place. He glanced at the documents on the table. So convenient. Afia stepped forward, placing herself between Chisom and Achebe. You won't get away with this. The truth is already out there. Achebe laughed coldly. Is it? Where? With whom? With me, came a voice from the shadows. Mama Yawanda emerged, but she wasn't alone. Behind her stood police officers and, most shocking of all, news cameras. I've been gathering my own evidence for 15 years, waiting for justice for my daughter who also died that day. As Achebe and his men were surrounded and arrested, Afia turned to Chisom, her father, and embraced him for the first time. I may not have much time left, he whispered, but I found you. And together, we've brought truth to light. 3 months later, as Afia stood at Chisom's hospital bedside, holding his hand in his final moments, she made a promise: the billions she inherited would be used to establish a foundation in the names of all 23 victims, a foundation dedicated to corporate accountability and worker safety. The billionaire beggar's final secret wasn't his wealth or his identity, it was that justice, like kindness, comes in unexpected forms. And sometimes, the people we help are the very ones destined to save us in return.